With me now to discuss, Republican Congressman Brad Wenstrup of Ohio and Democratic Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado. They're both veterans, and they are here to talk about their bipartisan bill to help Afghan nationals who were employed on behalf of the U.S. military during the 20-year war there and are still living in constant danger under the Taliban. Before I do get to that, though, I want to ask you both about what we just heard from General Milley about Ukraine. Do you think they're ready for this long-promised counteroffensive? Let me start with Congressman Wenstrup because he outranks you, Captain Crow. Colonel, please.
Yeah, well, it would appear that they are ready in many ways, and I'll go to one in particular. They have the will for this. You know, the people in Ukraine know what freedom looked like, and they do not want it taken away. Whereas the Russian military is in a different situation, and I don't think it's even that popular within the Russian populace as it is. So that's one of the advantages for the Ukrainians going in. Look, what goes on in Ukraine does matter, and China is watching every bit of this, and so it's important. But what we want to see from the United States and European allies in particular is what is our aid doing? How are we trying to help put an end to this so that Ukraine can be a sovereign nation once again?
And Congressman Crow, let me ask you, CNN has also learned that Ukraine has cultivated sabotage agents inside Russia and is giving those sabotage agents drones to stage attacks. What do you make of that? Does that increase the danger of this war expanding or even drawing in NATO nations?
Well, I couldn't agree more with my friend Brad. You better believe the Ukrainians are ready. They have the grit, the will, the determination to fight in the way that somebody who is always fighting for their children, for their home, for their neighborhoods, will always fight with all of their strength and their will. So the Russians actually have something really in store for them, and I would encourage the Russian soldiers to lay down their arms and return home, or at least leave the battlefield, because this is not a fight that they should be fighting. And listen, we have always been clear as the United States that we are going to give them the equipment, the training, the resources to fight, but this is the Ukrainians' fight. They know how to take this fight to the battlefield to the Russians. They know how to spread the Russians out. They know how to strike deep. They are not going to use U.S. munitions to do so. They have respected our request to avoid doing that, and there's no reason to believe that they will not continue to respect that. So the Ukrainians are doing exactly what they need to do.
Congressman Wenstrup, turning to your new bill, the Afghan Allies Protection Act, this would extend the Afghan Special Immigrant Visa Program by 5 years. It would provide an eligibility exemption for those injured or killed in the line of duty and authorize an additional 20,000 special immigrant visas. It extends and expands a program already in place. How urgent is this need, do you think?
Oh, I think it's very urgent. I think it's actually later than we would like, because you have so many people, as you mentioned, that are waiting to hear. This is a promise that we made as America, that you work with us and you will have the opportunity, if you fulfill all the guidelines, to come to the United States. I know that I engaged with two of my interpreters that are now in the United States, both U.S. citizens, both practicing physicians in the United States of America. This is who we have waiting to come into the United States of America, people that want to be Americans and want to do what they can for this country, and they already did it just the same way as our troops did.
Congressman Crow, what about the backlog at the U.S. State Department on this? Is there pressure that needs to be put on Secretary Blinken and President Biden on this?
Well, Jake, Brad is absolutely right. This bill has to pass. This is a bipartisan and bicameral bill, so Brad and I in the House, Senators Shaheen and Wicker on the Senate side. But the backlog is an essential part of this. We have tens of thousands of Afghan partners who fought with us, who got injured with us, some of whom were killed fighting right beside our friends. I may not be here today if it hadn't been for some of those translators and interpreters who fought with us and sacrificed so much. So we have to get this done. And this bill not only expands the number of visas, because we've almost exhausted the number of visas, but it streamlines the process. It allows for remote processing because we don't have an embassy in Afghanistan anymore. And it allows for other really critical ways to cut bureaucratic red tape and bring these people to the United States so they can start their new lives.
So, Congressman Wenstrup, this is a companion bill, as you noted, to the one introduced on the other side of Capitol Hill by Senator Roger Wicker and Senator Jeanne Shaheen. As you know, an effort to include something like this in the omnibus spending bill was held up by Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa. He raised objections over what he says are lax criteria for special immigrant visa program eligibility. I don't know what his position is going to be on your legislation here, but does he need to be pushed? Can you get him to stop obstructing this?
Well, we have to talk to any of those that don't quite understand what we understand. You know, it's easy for someone who hasn't been there, that doesn't fully appreciate what actually takes place in war and how these are people that are loyal to the United States of America and that we need to fulfill our promises. And that's a big part of it. America has got to be a country that fulfills its promises, especially when they're helping us during war. And that should be the #1 priority for people that maybe don't think it's the greatest program in many ways. It is a great program because these are people that deserve what they have earned.
Congressman Brad Wenstrup and Jason Crow, thank you so much for your service. Thanks for being here, and thanks for pushing for this. It's a very important piece of legislation that we talk about a lot on the show.
Thank you.